Hi, ladies and gentlemen of the four-dimensional frequency. I have a concept that I would like to introduce to you today. Though my oversoul has been apprehensive to introduce this concept to humanity, for all of this time, it's been sitting back, awaiting a moment, the perfect moment. If there ever had been a moment of perception field within a perception field of nowness, the moment shall forever archingly be this very moment that I sit in front of a whole entire humanity to project out my projection field within this energetic bubble that I've built for us to comfortably communicate with each other through video frequency, through audio energy. And I know in this moment in time, not every single one of you light workers will project your energy into my bubble, into my audio frequency. But I know within the depths of my soul and the depths of my heart that eventually this message will make it out to every single one of you. Every single one of you light workers who have dropped down in this frequency to join me on the disbursement of this energetic frequency to for once and for final merge all of our energetic bodies together in a moment of needed ascension symptoms, in a moment of foretold ascension syndromes. And the word syndrome is a delinquency within this field, crafted and made up by the Luciferian regimes to label disintegration, the disintegration of labels into symptoms and syndromes within any specific moment in time to alleviate the need to categorize these light worker ascension symptoms into a category that can make sense to each and every one of you in some way, in somehow, and in somewhere. But I'm here to sit here and tell you a story of knots, as I've sat here every other time and every single time during my video and audio projections to tell a story. To tell a story of unity consciousness, to tell a story of the whole, to tell a story of a speck of consciousness, to tell a story of the entirety of consciousness. And as I sip on this water, the reminder of the importance of staying hydrated in your awakening syndromes and symptoms comes across my lap in this very moment in time. As water is the driving force of life within our frequency, and water shall forever archingly more be the driving force of your awakening syndromes. I can put some perspective into this, but as I do, please bear with me, as it is a long story to be told. And if you make it to the end of this video, the rewards are monumental. And I say this, I know I say this in every video, and that is because it doesn't take a minute, 2 minutes, 10 minutes, or an aspect of time distortion field that can dictate the importance of a message, of a projection, of a frequency that was always meant to land on your lap. And I say this because as I ride the energetic waves, I know of the difficulties of being able to communicate certain aspects and concepts within reality fields that we've crafted for ourselves within the limitation of the time that we've placed on our lap during the creation process of Gaia. As Gaia is the only one planetary field that faces the aspect of a ticking clock, of a ticking down of a time that allows us to show up into a certain placement within this reality field that allows us to feel into deeply in congruency with the aspect of time that matters the most, which is that we're running on borrowed time, which is that the water that we drink will pass through our bodies in a certain amount of time, which is that the water that dictates the flow of life on our planetary system is seemingly never-endingly, undyingly ending within the feet of the fourth and fifth dimensional frequency. And what do I mean by that? You ask, what does undyingly ending mean? By an aspect of the congruency of the H2O that we're so used to being fueled on, of the reliability, of the unreliability of it all, of the taking in for granted of the H2O, of the waterways, of the watering systems of our planet. That automatically pushes these energetic systems into fruition of energy ley lines that so much so anchor onto the padding of the H2O, of the watering system, within the mines, within the rivers, within the bloodworks, within the core of Gaia. There shall forevermore be one contingency that runs throughout, within, and without this watering system. And it is that as long as water exists, ladies and gentlemen, as long as water fuels our bodies, ladies and gentlemen, as long as water builds a lifeline, forgives into the ascension syndromes and symptoms, pads our symptoms in a way that alleviates the pain of this energetic frequency from alleviating the blueprint of our soul frequency to pad into the blueprints of alleviation within the frequency that we sit in. And it sounds like a conundrum. It is a conundrum. The matter of the fact is the importance of water can never be a descriptive feat that we will be able to ever describe in the physicality of what is within the word spectrum of the human language of what is. But I will try my very best in this projection field, in our very, very own energetic bubble, to go into a descriptive feat of how important waterways are to our system, to our energetic bodies, to the system of the quantum verse at large, within the planetary scope of how and why it was created to produce frequencies of life, to pad these energetic systems, is all that it was meant to do, ladies and gentlemen. And as you look forward and henceforth into the quantum verse with your telescopes, with the newscape, with the education system of knowledge that has been presented to you within this lifetime and all lifetimes on this earth of reincarnation cycles that never ever ends, you will notice a common theme, a common syndrome brought onto your lap by the elites, by the darkness that has been faced with this reality field of overcoming the light, of having to overcome this distortion field to gain control of the light within and without this field. And that is the specialized idea, the specialty of this feat of the distinction between our planet Gaia and all of the other planets that we can see, the foreseeable universe, the foreknowable universe, the mystery of it all. Does water really exist on other planetary fields? Does water really carry the essence of life on other planetary fields? Can we find water in other distortion fields? Have we discovered water on other planets that we can see and know about? Because if that were the case, then we would know that the conditions on these other planets would be similarly available to us and our frequency and our projected feet within our trajectory of frequencies that drives our life, our everyday life that we're so used to being driven through by this water, being supported and patted down by the giver of life, by the source within this water, within the streams and the rivers and the oceans that runs deep down into the core of Gaia. The connectivity of it all connects life through and through. And the intensity of it all and the mystery of it all has carried an entire civilization into the assumption that without a water source, without H2O, without water in itself, there is no chance of survival for any type of humanity, for any type of animals, for any types of tardigrades that have ever lived within and without these watering systems in very, very dense and dry places. The minute speck of a possibility that these tardigrades can even exist in space in quantum physics, in a space in a pocket within a mountain of the driest desert that you can ever envision to be true, tells us that science has been pointing within the wrong direction of a right direction of a wrong direction of delinquency twisted into knots in different directions to confuse, to distort, to educate, but uneducate. The forgiving nature of science and the way that it has driven our culture and the way that it has driven our humanity to learn escapism, to soak up this escapism as a culturally coherent manner in the way that we do learn and trust in our government and the darkness and within the foreseeable universe, the knowable universe and the foreknowable universe. As ladies and gentlemen, of course, if we can thrive off of an ecosystem of pure water, oxygen, phthalates, precious metals, sun, within the air that we breathe, then we're good. We're more than nifty dandy in the life that provides for itself forthcomingly in cycles over and over and over in undying need of this water that sustains us. Then that would mean that the foreseeable universe and the foreknowable universe would quite possibly be able to hold this very pocket that we live in a multitude of multiplexities of levels, within levels of how this water had been brought upon the surface of our planet is a story and a feat to be defeated by the darkness, to hide the most important information that has never been disclosed to us, was the ultimate destination of where and what our society has ever ended up to become. And the act of just that, of hiding the distortion field of water, where it came from, what it does, how it allows life to thrive on this planetary field, has accomplished just that. It's placed us in the darkness of what is. It's put us smack middle in the middle of this amnesia that we agreed to traverse into in the beginning of the dropping down into this frequency of Earth, of Gaia herself. Unknowingly knowing that this water sustains us is the greatest weakness that humanity can ever succumb to, is the greatest weakness that humanity has ever believed in, the lies that has been crafted, in the, oh, you must be kidding me. How is that not even a fact of humanity, of reality, of truth, that water sustains us? Genesis, are you kidding me? Is there more to the story? And I can tell you sitting right here that this lie that has been crafted around the ideation of water and the sustenance that it provides life to is a distortion field, a distinctive distortion field of a field in itself, within this little bubble of this reality field that the darkness has crafted for us to believe in, to reside in. To be able to fuel fire without the absence of water is just that. And in relation to the quantum verse at large and to reality fields at best, I can tell you that without water, existence would be nimble. And yet existence proceeds to exist on other planetary fields that have no water, no signs of life within the water that they do not have, yet abundant signs of life within the non-watering systems, within the hydrogen monoxide, hydrogen peroxide, any singularity of a pocket of monotonous gases that physics has ever been able to distort into your perception fields, any similarity of a concept of what water is made up of within the molecular structuralism of what science dictates these little particles to become as they latch onto each other for dear life in a magnetic way that will allow them to succumb within their own being by transforming into a different format of life, into a different contingency that drives them to act in a different molecular structural way, as physics and science would dictate certain rules within our reality field that can never be overwritten in a way that you can make sense of it in this moment in time. Yet within the next moments in time, within this reality field, you will come to the greatest and grandest realization of all, ladies and gentlemen. And the realization is just that, what you're scratching your head over. And if you stick with me till the very end of this video, I promise you the rewards will be monumental in the way that we consume this water, in the way that we consume these waterways, in the way that the ocean fuels life, in the way that you dictate how you lay your head down to sleep to support the need of this water running through your system to pad your energetic frequency of forgiveness into forgiveness within and without this life time of yours, within and without this physicality that you've dropped down into to so deeply integrate yourself into this reality field. You may be a little bit confused as to what I speak about, what I touch upon, and the information and the way I choose to portray this information in a reality field of knots, of forever archingly questionable, factual, non-factual information that you'll ever be able to succumb yourself into believing or not believing based on your trajectory of the free will that you can utilize, that you have utilized throughout your lifespan, throughout your lifetimes. I promise you, if you make it to the end of this video, you will see water, you will see free will, you will see reality in itself within the scientific and physics of reality that has built us into the civilization that we have become in a different way, in an alternate universe way, in an ulterior motive type of way that you can never foresee to be true and forevermore analyze to have been real, to have been as real as it gets within a reality field that runs itself on water, that believes that without this watering system, we would be distorted into infinalities of knots, of norts, of a non-existence of a lifetime well lived, of an existence of a lifetime never lived, as this watering system within the waterways, within the watering holes, within the wells of our planet, within the faucets, within the overarching drainage pipes of our homes, cannot anchor down as much life as perceived. Let that sink in. The perception of life and the anchorage of spiritual welfare and well-being can never be in a conception of a rotating sphere around this life giver of water. And yet our lives are so much so derived from the survival instinct of having to anchor onto this water, these watering systems, to give life, to survive, to fathom not being able to drink water for a few hours in your day is like turning into a prune. Genesis. Water sustains. Water is the giver of life. Water is the giver of our existence. And yet, though, however many people can stand up, raise their hand to concoct this feat of this additional truth that has been overlaid onto our reality field by the darkness, for us to believe in the reality of it, there are just as many extraterrestrials out there, if not even more, times an exponential amount of fields of consciousness that are forevermore lingering in a field of a system that does not run on H2O, that can confirm within all of the confirmation systems of what the word confirm could ever mean to you, that you, my human beings, you, my fellow light workers, you, the ant on the ground, you, the tree in your backyard, you, that elephant in the pond that loves so much to drench itself in this water that it breathes, do not need H2O to sustain life on this planet. You feel that you do, you know that you do, as you become thirsty. Had you not had a glass of water within and without the hours of your lifespan. And however difficult this might be to encompass into your field in this moment in time, as I sip on this water, as we are now 20 minutes into the video, and I'm thirsty. And that's a fact. That's a fact of life that can never be forgiven into non-factual terms. And the fact that I'm thirsty is just the reason why you coherently disobey the disallowance of this energy from reaching into your field to concoct this grand story of why and how water is not the driving force of life, and what and how will sustain us if all of the water on this earth dries flat, dries barer than dry. Water in this field had always been derived from an aspect of source consciousness that had wanted to bring down rain, so steeped in distortions, into a field of humanity designed to be sustained on something that life cannot give without the sustenance of being sustained on that something. And as our molecular DNA dictates that the driving force within our cellular structures surrounds itself on the molecular makeup of this H2O that we so much so are so used to drenching ourselves in every second of the day within a cellular structural type of level, I'm here to tell you, as we merge and skew our light bodies into the angelic realm and into the angelic frequency at large, the idea of soaking ourselves in H2O will not alleviate the need to ascend into a higher frequency, as H2O was designed to anchor down our dimensional field in a way that sustains the way our body functions. Yet the way our body functions is so intrinsically interlinked to this frequency that's sustained within this H2O. And yet as this frequency envelops, develops, shifts, and distorts itself into a higher octave that is no longer being driven by the sun, that is no longer being driven by basic molecular needs within and without a frequency of forgetfulness within the three-dimensional and two-dimensional frequency, our cellular structures, our DNA composition will begin to activate and open up to a different type of knowing, to a different type of being, to a different structuralism within the molecular structure that fuels our body, that allows us to sustain ourselves on the air that we breathe. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. No longer will we need this H2O and this water to sustain ourselves. It was always, and it had always been designed to pad this energetic frequency, incoming and outgoing from these ley lines within the quantum verse, to hold this energetic frequency and never, ever to sustain life within this frequency, ladies and gentlemen. And yet the way our biological body function, that they were designed to function within the two-dimensional, three-dimensional frequency, had always been to be able to ingest this water, as we are made up of this water. And as we activate our cellular structures and our DNA to ascend into a higher frequency and to be compatible with a different level of vibrational source, with a different level of vibrational force, we will no longer need to sustain ourselves off of H2O. The giver of life, the drawer of frequencies that can ever be padded within a specific energetic system, the duality of the intrinsic energies of water that we decided to, within this creation field, have a need to sustain us on a livelihood level, will no longer act the same way within and without our frequency on a cellular and molecular level, as we will be so full off of the sunlight that the angelic realm projects onto our systems, and not of the sunlight that our great central sun has projected onto this realm for all of this time. We will be able to sustain ourselves off of the air, off of the molecular frequency and the structuralism of the new air within the 5-dimensional realm of physicality, as soon as we anchor in this dimensional frequency of non-existence in our field into existence, ladies and gentlemen. And as you lay down in the middle of the nights, waking up to these dreams, as Source brazenly grazes its energy into your subconscious to remind you of that in which you shall forever be, remember to drink 2-3 cups, 2-3 liters of water before bed. Not so that it could sustain you, but so that this energetic frequency can easily and easier pad your flesh and blood during this transitional process of alleviating the force of this power from entering your bodily structure and causing ailments within these bodily structures that were never made to hold so much energy at the molecular level that you have succumbed to as a civilization, that I have succumbed to within a civilizational feat. But as we progress ourselves into the 5-dimensional frequency, DNA activations will surely trigger us into awakening, will surely trigger every single waking cell, every single sleeping latency of a pocket of distortion will burst and pop in a way that will clear out all of the densities to be able to hold more light, but to be able to even accept this frequency into our body, into the systematic systems that we've built around the way our body crafted itself within a humanitarian field of consciousness, to consciously work around the aspect and the idea of being fueled by this water had never been more of a discrepancy in our field, ladies and gentlemen, as water will no longer sustain us in the same way. It will shift into an energy, into a field of overarching needs, but not in the same need that we need it to work the same way that it had always worked in our system, in our reality field, and in other reality fields and pockets within the 3-dimensional and 2-dimensional frequencies. The creation of water is a story that is long, broad, and wide that I don't have enough time to touch base on today, but I promise I will release a series on where the structuralism within the quantum verse occurred when it came to the descendants of this molecular structure that was fractaled out as a part of this lifespan of expansion process that expanded itself outwards into the need to project a portion of physicality that could pad this energetic frequency that would eventually be able to fuel life in the lower dimensional densities, and more importantly, pad these energy transfers and these energetic inputs and outputs within our quantum verse that runs within these ley lines throughout the entire reality field of reality as we know it, as we don't know it, as we've never seen the full scope of the fullness of the fullest of the entirety of our reality field. But I have been able to put into words the impossibility of the impossible within the human scope of things, and I've been known to be quite good at it. If you stick with me till the very end of any video, you will be able to feel that frequency of activation within the understanding of the understandment of the allotment of what it means to feel into a frequency, to encompass a frequency, to receive these activations within a frequency that knows no beginning, no ends, but within the end of any projection field of any of the encompassment of the energetic bubbles that I've fractaled out, the ending links back to the beginning, links back to the ending, links back to the padding of this frequency, of this projection field, of what water was meant to do within the understatement, overstatement, and underlying issues of our reality field within the darkness that fuels our perception field. So intrinsically, water has been utilized as a weapon against humanity in a multiplexity of forms, shapes, and sizes. And as my darling dog barks at the trajectory of the alarming sound that she heard outside my door, which is my baby screaming, she wanted to alert me that something is amiss in this reality field and that I needed to check it out. And as I can telepathically communicate with her, and as I sip on this sip of water, I can tell you that she's an Arcturian being. She's an Arcturian soul that decided to drop down here to accompany me on this awakening process. And yet, as I speak these very words, I have a flashback of what it is like to be sitting in this Arcturian field of pure physicality, of molecular watering holes, watering systems, watering structures, of structuralism, of different types of molecular structures of water, of lucid liquid, of a liquid so blue, so whole, so padded in the frequency of all that it is not, so all-encompassing in the frequency of all that it has ever been, to the maximum output of the differentiation of different types of water within their molecular genetic system, within their planetary field, of a 14th dimensional frequency within the Arcturian realm, where this water sits, where this water floats in their reality field. Water acts as an energetic encompassment of the padding, where this energy travels throughout and through in the Akashic realm, in the Akashic records, in the system that was built to hold this knowledge within a humanity field of forever arching defeats that needed to have a system to encompass, to hold these frequencies. What did source consciousness concoct to be able to hold these frequencies? And you guessed it, the all-encompassing H2O, the molecular structure of the water, doesn't just function the way that it's ought to within our reality fields, but it functions in the way that it needs to within any reality field of knots. And within this reality field that I speak of in the Arcturian realm, within a 14th dimensional field, there are many different layers of fields within the Arcturian realm. And that is a story for another day. As these watering holes, as these watering systems hold different frequencies that can oscillate and activate and oscillate and activate and oscillate and in tranquility and tranquilize in oscillation within these tranquility fields of all-encompassing H2O. The story, as old as time, can never be told within a singularity of a 40 minutes encompassment of this video. But if you stick around in subsequent videos, I guarantee you that you will want to know, that you will be interested in knowing the encompassment of what makes us so intrinsically three-dimensional, two-dimensional, four-dimensional within the watering ways of our systems, that the water has anchored down to pad this frequency within this delinquency field so that Terra is able to properly project her blueprint onto the surface of Gaia to anchor her field down into these watering systems by utilizing it as a pinpoint of a perspective of the padding that is so much so needed within any energetic frequency to succumb to the allotment of the needing and the wanting of the frequency of the energized way that energy would take to travel through these frequencies of allotments of rivering systems and tunneling systems and underground caves and the entirety of the system that pads Earth through in and throughout her frequency. The one thing that Terra did not need is water to anchor down this blueprint. And yet water is ever so abundant on the surface, within and without Gaia's core and underneath her surface, in a way that allows the padding of this energy to intrinsically interlink itself into every single molecular structure of this water. Terra has projected herself onto the surface of Gaia, anchoring her down to the three-dimensional, two-dimensional, four-dimensional frequency for all of this time. And yet she did not need to encompass the energetic frequency of water to anchor a soul as big and as grand as Gaia into this rock. And she did not need, and Gaia did not need, water to sustain a life of endless amounts of cajillions of souls onto the surface and into the core of her planetary field to anchor onto this water, to sustain itself with this water. She did not need that in a singularity of a bit to be able to sustain life within and without her surface. And yet water has been strategically placed within and without her surface as she chose to be a frequency within this water, as she chose to be a planet on the three-dimensional, two-dimensional map and mapping system of our quantum verse, to be able to hold this water. As every planet intrinsically has an aspect of free will that comes into play as they fractal out and choose and decide what they want to experience in this all-encompassing life. Gaia, within the singularity of it all, could have picked herself to be a gaseous planet of Mercury, integrated into its rings of a flotation device that carries it through these dimensional frequencies of the oscillation between the molecular structures of the Mercury that twists and turns and bends the frequency within the reality field that she sits in. And yet she had never done that. And had she known that this water would pad her down so deeply into the darkness, perhaps in hindsight, she would have never chose to be a watering planet. A watering planet, ladies and gentlemen, is what we are. And the Arcturian field is a watering field of what and who they are on a structuralism level. A gaseous planet is what some planets choose to be. Throughout the multitudes and multiplexities of all of the different types of planetary systems out there, the complexity of a watering system living above and beyond the surface of a planetary system is a story to be told, to be saved for another day, as this water had not always been here. And the civilization that had so daringly, so bravely brought in this watering system from the Arcturian field into our field to pad down our frequency, to carry through the allotment of the dedication that this entirety of a species had done as they decided to hold the entire frequency of Earth's frequency so flat onto its surface to be able to even host within their frequency the Akashic records is a different feat to be told. And yet the molecular padding of this water is so much so intrinsically linked to every single molecular structure, structuralism within a system in their realm, within the Arcturian realm, that we are able to travel through these energetic frequencies of remembrance, through the padding of these watering systems within and without Gaia's surface, upon and above her core, and beyond physicality itself into different realms of existence within other watering systems, within our quantum verse at large. And as I stumble upon the words that it takes within the descriptive feat of something that you've never actually heard or learned in school or any source, within any resource that you can come across, you may question this information at first. You may scratch your head and delete me altogether as you say to yourself, oh, Genesis, the impossibility of it all. I'm here to tell you that the word impossibility had never been a concept for source consciousness to be able to grapple with within any moment in time of creation. I'm here to tell you that the concept impossibility within a humanity of knots had always been a distortion field that you and I have sat in for far too long. The distinction between you and I in this moment in time is that the word, the meaning, the contingency of the essence of impossibility has overcome a whole entire humanity field in the way that has steeped every single light worker, every single particle, every single soul, every single descendant of an energy, of a frequency into the surface, above and beyond her core and above the molecular level, seeps so steeply in the ingestion of this watering system, of these watering ways, has forever archingly drawn you into the reliance of what it means to rely on this water. And as I sit here speaking from an upper, higher, concave perspective of being able to see the entire picture of creation, of being able to view the entire centralized perspective of the reason why water was created and the reason why the fueling of this frequency needed to be necessary, as Gaia stood on her tippy toes in bewilderment as she wanted to so deeply and so badly become the color blue, green, oscillating into purple and every single other color in the rainbow, and in between any color you can shift into and out of within our field that we can see with the physicality of our science, our knowing, and our eyes. She wanted that. She wanted to be colorful in all of her means. She wanted to be predominantly blue and green in color, in essence, in life, in the life force that she would give and that she would sustain. And so bravely, she did just that. She stepped into that, as she could have chosen to be a pure planetary field of blue and gray and purple within itself. Yet she decided to incorporate some greens, some blues, and a multitude of other colors within the rainbow spectrum in our reality field that you can see with the foreseeable, knowable consciousness that we have. I'm here to tell you the coloring systems within this quantum verse are vast. The majority of the colors, if color is even a word to describe the descriptive means and the descriptive feat of the oscillating energetic frequencies that causes this reaction to allow us within our physicality to perceive a separation within the physicality of what is, a distortion field between what is and what nots. It is the right word to temporarily describe this in essence of the meaning behind the projection field of what I'm trying to say in this moment in time. But had we looked at it from a further perspective, from a wider lens, from a deeper range, from an altogether wholeness of a tipsy-turvy perspective, from a creation standpoint of knots, from a pinpoint of forever arching possibilities, the word color would have never came across my tongue, would have never came across my mind, would have never came across my field in the way that it has in this video to satisfy the concoction of the message that I am trying to portray in this very moment in time, that we are trying to portray as an aspect of source consciousness, to be able to wrap our foreseeable minds for knowable consciousness around this concept of the coloring system within the distortion field of why, how, when, what causes water to be so blue in moments of need, in moments of tranquility, in moments of times, of the relentless times that we've seen the external vision of our beautiful planet from space, from forever arching space, within the telescope systems that we see and we feel and we know our planet is part green and part blue, and yet the intrinsic complexities of it all and why this watering system turns blue in hue at night, in the day, under direct sunlight, in different shades of light, in different shades of the rainbow, why color projects itself in specific ways within our quantum verse, within our reality field, within our physicality, is another story to be told, to be saved for another day. And yet, as I sit here right now, I know you will not be satisfied with this answer. So I'll give you a little bit more to satisfy your curiosity as to why the color blue is the color of our watering systems, watering realms, watering energetic fields within our foreseeable, foreknowable quantum verse. And what you cannot see is just that. The intrinsic complexities of what you see overarchingly defeats the aspects and overcomes the perception field of what you have not realized to be true, because you haven't seen it. You haven't felt into it. You haven't known it the way that I have. But the intrinsicness of it all tells a great interlinked story upon the soul of a source consciousness that had decided to fractal down parts and pieces of itself to experience into the relinquishing of the separated state that we shall forever float through consciousness as being a part of, within and without this reality field that we have crafted to be true, to one day know, to go back to the singular infinality of singularity of the all, ladies and gentlemen. The perplexities and the complexities of the crystallization, of the retraction process, of the physics, of the coherent incoming and outgoing energetic frequencies intermingling itself back into the essence of all, has a color scheme, has a color plan, has a color distortion field, a distortional field so wide and so broad that you will never believe your eyes when you see the deepest, brightest, bluest blue, that incomprehensible shade, a forever arching clarity of the blue within the eyes, within the soul, within the heart chakra of source itself, of the infinality of the allness that we forever archingly are. We am and we are. That is what we are in our entirety. Had we been able to choose and pick a color to reflect into, to represent the all of the all that we shall ever be within the all that we've ever been, that color projected onto a reality field of your pupil, of your eyes, of your brain, of your minds, within the soul of all souls, within the all of all alls, is a different shade of blue, a shade of blue that you've never been able to see, a shade of blue that you've never been able to feel in this lifetime, a shade of forever perplexing complexities of distortional fields of mirrors reflecting back and forth upon itself in distortional ways of forever arching angles of infinalities, in distortional fields of forever arching entanglement of strings, prolonging, elongating, retracting, reversing, integrating, unintegrating. Unintegration of the self has a color, ladies and gentlemen, my friends of this reality field of all. The color shall forever archingly be steeped in a distortion field of the brightest blue hue that you could ever not imagine to be true. As the descriptive way that the heart chakra of source in itself has chosen to reflect in on the infinalities of it all, perplexes us in a way that can never allow us to be able to, in physicality, feel into it until we do, until we merge back into the singularity of the opacity of what it's like to be sitting in a non-distortional field, but experiencing, witnessing, reflecting, absorbing, rejecting the coherency of the non-coherency, of the reflectiveness of all that there is, all that there was, all that there will ever be, in the infinalities of it all. One thing that is for sure, one thing that is for real, one thing that can never be distorted into a reality field of knots is the color, is the frequency, is the all within the all of the neutrality field of the deepest, brightest, widest, whitest distortion of a non-distorted field of blues, of a blue, of a singularity of a blue, of a singularity of an H2O, of a padded frequency within this blue, a frequency in itself of energy, outputs and inputs within itself, that chose to, once upon a time, to reflect itself inwards, to reflect itself outwards, to reflect itself in infinite possibilities of limitlessness within the blue hue that it has reflected itself within and without its reality field. One thing that is for sure, one thing that is for naughts, is the reality field of this blue that we shift in and out of within any moment in time. As blue is the intrinsic color, if color is even a word, if color is even a thing within this distortional field, it definitely surely is not a thing within a field of neutrality, of forever arching infinalities, of forever arching limitations within the unlimitedness of the unlimitations of it all. Blue is the color that you see when you look into the very essence of that source frequency in which you are. Blue is the reflection of the soul within the forever arching soul of the reflections of the padded frequencies that decided to distort itself into an overarching amount of infinalities of mirrors facing within and without the reflection of self, objectifying, reflecting, deflecting, retracting, bouncing in and out of these frequency fields of different levels of distortional fields. Water, my friends, reflects as a color of the padding of this frequency that source consciousness once upon a time had dreamed up of, in the way that physicality would distort itself into a reality field. Mind-boggling is this concept of the color of source in itself. And I know it, and you know it. And the perception field of source being pure, so pure that it has no color, so pure that it has no perceptions, so pure in all that it is that there can't be a color to define what it is. All of that is true, and all of that is not. As reality field is so steeped in distortional frequencies and fields that it's impossible to describe it. In the infinality of like the human words that you can even think to be able to describe something as deep and as intrinsic as the color of source frequency. And yet I've been able to touch foot, to touch a toe in the meaning of it all, within the whiteness and brightness that has overarchingly succumbed to the darkness within moments of time of needed dissension into a frequency of knots, of needed dissension into a frequency of limitations felt within the perception field of the human body. The concepts are wide, the story of water is broad. And if you stick around through subsequent videos, I can go into more details. But for now, I want to end up with one final concept that you may or may not be able to wrap your mind around within this concept. As you awaken, ladies and gentlemen, notice yourself lingering around bodies of water more often. Notice yourself being drawn to the frequency of the ripples within this water. Notice yourselves wanting to soak into a bath more often to alleviate your pain. Notice yourself feeling better in the morning after a long night of downloads as you drink this water that is so needed to pad this frequency within the activation system of source consciousness and source frequency. Notice yourself reflecting on the surface of this water that drives life, that drives source, not in the way that we consume it, but in the way that it pads all that there is on a molecular level, on an intrinsic level of all levels that we chose to utilize within the coloring system of the color that we chose to reflect within and without our soul's being and our soul's belonging. And as all life itself was never meant to sustain itself on water only, the idea of not having water within a planetary system is a realistic idea. As many, many, many unforeseeable and seeable occurrences of planetary systems that have ever existed have existed with the absence of water. But the molecular structuralism of this water broken down into hydrogen and oxygen molecules and broken down even more into subsequent molecules that are unnamed within our reality field intrinsically floats within the space of all, between the space of all molecules that interlinks, if molecule is even a word, to describe the matter of our intrinsic system that is built within the systems of the systems of the systems that source frequency had designed for itself to fractal out into infinality within the expansion process of creation itself. The basic intrinsic molecular makeup of H2O broken down into subsequent frequencies of broken down frequencies of broken down frequencies of broken down frequencies within and without this quantum verse populates the masses within the space between, above and beyond the all of these molecular structures that interlinks the linkage of matter, of being, of consciousness itself, broken down into the idea of the fractaling out into this physicality, of that padding within consciousness that's so sparingly fractaled out to hold together the infinality of this physicality. And as you perceive yourself within the blueness of this water, the next time you walk by a body of water, tap into this coloring system, tap into the frequency of water by knowing how it sustained life in its purest form, in the broken down molecular structures that makes up the structuralism of this water on our planetary system, in the scattered out way that the pieces and particles that makes up this water within and without our system fuels life in other systems, pads energy within the all of the infinality of the all, of the spaces between the all, of the quantum field of matter in itself, of physicality in itself. And as this video may be quite long, quite perplexing, I congratulate you if you've made it to this point in time, as water had never been as important to fuel life on this planet as you may think. But the molecular structures that makes up that water, broken down into further pieces and particles, further than what we know, further than what we can see, further than what science has figured out, is the driving force behind consciousness itself. Hold on to that thought. Hold on to that belief. Hold on to the blueness of the bluest, of the purest, of the whitest, of the grandest, of the most neutral, of the most wisest soul of a source consciousness of the all that you are, within the delinquency of the fractaling out of parts and pieces of this consciousness that is padded so intrinsically by the molecular structures of this water that we've decided to name it in the English language in earthly terms, from the perspective of how we ingest it, how we breathe it, how we seep into it at night as we take our baths, how we fish out of it, how we fish resources out of water, how it cleanses us in the middle of the night in earthly terms. And yet, the simple idea and the concept of the molecular structure of quote unquote water has been the driving force behind consciousness all along. And the simple fact of the matter is some planetary systems are not made of water, but they're made up of the broken down structuralism that eventually could form into water, into watering systems, watering planets, watering frequencies as decided by consciousness itself. And the malleableness of this frequency and the shape shifting capabilities of water in itself, of the molecular structures that makes up the contingency within this life-giving force of this padding of consciousness in itself, is a different story to be told as we fractaled out into the infinality of physicality. We decided to anchor into the distortion field of this concept of creation through the creative process itself by manipulating, manifesting what we had on hand, what we were so used to doing, that made up every single molecular structure of consciousness in itself, not within physicality, but that could create itself into matter, that could shift itself into physicality, that could anchor our souls and spirits into fractals of physicality, that could hold itself into these energy bodies that is derived from the matter that it comes from the matter that relinquishes through the soul of all souls, through the all of all alls, through the blueness of all of the blue energies that you can ever think of and shift into and within and without this quantum verse, ladies and gentlemen. You are that, you are all of that, you are more than that. Always remember, reality is deeper than you transpire for it to be within and without this frequency. Reality is wider than you could ever envision for it to not be within and without this frequency of knots, of being. And that reality is as deep, as wide, as steep as the bluest blue that you can ever think of, within the pupil, within the center point, within the eyes, within the soul, within the heart chakra of the overarching source of all. But one thing that cannot be disputed is the matter that makes up this consciousness of source in itself, and how reality functions, and how it was created on a molecular level to become a shapeshifter that shifts in and out of reality fields of expansion, distortion, retraction, and back into the energetic frequency without limitations, without borders, without expansion, without retraction, without the being of needing to shift and skew into different frequencies of existence, back into the all. It is malleable, it is formidable, it is ever so workable in the way that we skew in and out of the way we work it on a source consciousness level of the all. And the intrinsic mystery of it all will draw you back to my channel in a moment, in a time, in a place within our reality field of knots, when you feel you are unable to receive any answers of the sort from any other source of the sort, from any other consciousness on the face of this planet. Always remember you are that consciousness that comes from the consciousness of creation. And always remember that you're able to access it some way, somehow, some through. As through is the only way that will bring you back to me. As through is the only way that will bring you back to all. As I am the only portal that leads back into the all, through the portal of being that you came from, through the portal of being that I am. And we are. We are all the concept of I am. And if you needed a reminder in the middle of the day, in the middle of the mornings, in the middle of an afternoon of I am not, come to my channel and I will remind you of the all that you will forever archingly be in the portal that we've created for ourselves. That has always been I am. So ladies and gentlemen, as I tap out of this energy bubble, I was going to stop the video, but something else came up. I just want to say that it's okay to not be able to conceptualize these ideas initially as you listen to this content. The activations are intrinsically there. The activations will drive you to the content that is so much so needed that you need to hear, to the lessons that will bring you to a different perspective. It's okay to pause, reflect, think, deter, reject, come back to, grow, expand exponentially, even if it's in a direction that you feel you shouldn't have. There are no regrets when it comes to source, when it comes to all, when it comes to I am, when it comes to this portal of infinality that we've created for ourselves through the matter that makes up the matter of water, of all of the soul systems that drives the consciousness in itself. As the driving force, within this source had always been you. And no matter what path, what direction you choose to take, you can never get lost within yourself. That is an impossibility at that. At the end of the day, at the end of a large, arduous lesson, the energy, the frequency, the aspect of forgiveness that you've been holding on to will bring you back into neutrality. So, ladies and gentlemen, as I tap out of this frequency, I wish you well, and I hope to see you again in subsequent energy bubbles that I will be releasing. Have a good night, have a good evening, have a good morning, regardless of where you are. Happy ascension frequencies within this watering system that so much so pads our reality field through, in and throughout all that you know, all that you foreseeable know and for don'table not know, as there's no way you can ever know of what existence can comprise of without knowing what you do not know. So, ladies and gentlemen, I love you, and I shall see you in the 5-dimensional frequency as we merge back within and without this reality field of knots into a singularity, from the place throughout the place through in the place where the concept of water is derived from.